In today's video, we're going to take a look at what states are the cheapest states for retirement here in 2023 and what you might be missing out on or have to deal with if you're living that retirement on the cheap. Retirement might mean you've stopped working, but no matter what, you're not done paying. Retirement costs money. After I did a couple videos on retirement in the last few months, I started getting requests for videos about the cheapest states for retirement. We did a series of videos like this back in 2020, and I figured since so much has changed, we need to take another look. Today we're looking at what states are considered the most affordable for retirees. As we've all learned in past videos, if it's cheap, it's going to come with some negatives. I'll point out the negatives and what you might want to know or be aware of before you move to these states. Now, one thing I'm not going to do is bog the video down with a whole bunch of numbers and stuff like that. All these states get on this list because they have tax breaks and exemptions and a low cost of living. When you look at the taxes and exemptions, those numbers change all the time, but normally they stay there in one form or another. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Mississippi. That's right, the Magnolia State starts off our list at number 10. As we all know, Mississippi is dirt cheap. Their cost of living is so low, it's embarrassing. They're like the 99-cent store of states, with humidity and mosquitoes. Rent and home prices are normally well below the national average in just about every corner of the state. They also have an exemption for pension income and reasonable weather. Their winters don't get terribly cold. Their summers can get hot and humid. It's just like Florida with fewer beaches and fewer teeth. Now, there are some problems with living in Mississippi. First of all, you don't want to live in Jackson. Jackson is the state capital, and it is by far the worst state capital in the union. On top of that, WH ranks them as the 48th worst when it comes to senior health care. So that means there's only 2 other states that have worse health care than Mississippi. Number 9, Florida. We all know all retirees want to head to Florida at some point. Beaches, sunshine, things to do, coax your grandkids back east for a trip to Disney World. Things you always got to remember about living in Florida: they do get hurricanes, and mullets. Mullets are not required for men in Florida, but they are encouraged. Florida has no state income tax, so whatever you got coming in, don't worry about it getting taxed, at least from the state. Florida ranks 9th for retirees in affordability, but they're actually 15th for everyone else, which for a major state, that's pretty good. I mean, they've got major metro areas: Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, Miami, and Mobile. One of the downsides is you got to worry about hurricanes. And their healthcare isn't the greatest. They're actually ranked 28th for seniors. And by the way, Mobile is in Alabama, not Florida. Don't delete your message. Leave it there. Let me see it. Number 8, Arkansas. Arkansas is not a state most people would move to. Said it many times before, the northwest corner of that state is a lot different from the rest of the state. The rest of the state is backwards as f***. And when I say backwards, I mean backwards. In 1879, in Menlo Park, New Jersey, Edison built the first high-resistant incandescent electric light bulb. At the same time, Arkansas was excited about this new thing they had called the wheel, and they were just getting used to fire. But it is affordable to this day. Not as affordable as Mississippi. Let's just say they're the Walmart of states. Arkansas does give a credit for portions of pensions. Housing through most of the state is very affordable, normally about 20 to 30% below the national average. But the problem is a lot of the areas in this state have a lot of crime. 2 prime examples are Little Rock and Pine Bluff. They always show up on the most dangerous lists. On top of that, they don't have the best healthcare. They're actually ranked 44th in the nation. But it's cheap, it's beautiful, and the winters aren't terrible. When I say terrible, they're not like Minnesota, North Dakota weather. They're, get cold, but not terrible. Number 7, the Peach State, Georgia. Georgia is a great place to live. Every handful of years, it seems like Georgia becomes one of the hot spots to move to. And why not? Georgia's a pretty cool state. Affordability is just one thing that makes Georgia a great place to retire. They got decent weather, beautiful beaches, amazing cities like Savannah and Atlanta, and good people. My only problem with Georgia is that humidity in the summer. Oh my God. I've had to deal with that a few times in my life, and I wasn't really into it. Another bright spot for Georgia is they don't tax Social Security. Myself, I don't think anyone should tax your Social Security, but they do in a lot of different states. Georgia ain't one of them. Probably the biggest bummer about being a retiree in Georgia is the healthcare. For seniors, they're ranked 42nd in the nation. Number 6, Delaware. Now, Delaware's a little strange because it doesn't have an incredibly low cost of living. It's probably one of the higher ones on this list, but they do have a bunch of tax breaks and credits for seniors and retirees. It is considered one of the most tax-friendly states. It has no sales tax, no state inheritance tax, no tax on Social Security income, and an exclusion for part of retirement income. Basically, there's an opportunity to save a lot of money being retired in Delaware. You probably want to have a good tax man though, or at least a competent one. Sure, Delaware's up there on the East Coast. It's going to get cold in this area during the winter, so you always have to consider that. It's not as pleasant as some of the southern states, but their healthcare is not terrible. It's actually ranked 18th for seniors. Number 5, Wyoming. Wyoming is becoming more and more popular with the retirees, especially the type that like to be outdoors. Wyoming is wide open with plenty of things to do. They have a few problems. They don't have a bunch of surface water, so you always got to worry about drought, but they're pretty cheap. Not Mississippi, West Virginia cheap, but they're cheap. Better than Colorado, California, Washington, and maybe Idaho. So they're fairly cheap and they have no state income tax. That means your Social Security, all that good stuff, is free from state taxes. The negatives are the weather can get a little crazy and a little cold, and their healthcare ranks 38th in the nation. Number 4, South Carolina. South Carolina is becoming more and more popular with the retirees. I've mentioned this before, but a lot of them go to Florida and they don't like it, and then they move back towards like New York a little bit, and then they kind of get to South Carolina and realize they like it there a little bit better. They call them halfbacks, meaning they went halfway home. And yes, South Carolina is not halfway between Florida and New York City. We get it. Don't need any more emails about that. It's just a phrase. Now, South Carolina has a pretty low cost of living. Sure, if you get in Charleston area or Hilton Head, maybe even Myrtle Beach, it gets a little pricey. But most of this state is affordable, both in housing and everyday cost of living stuff. When it comes to taxes, they do pretty good here. Now, it's not just tax-free like a lot of other states, but they have a lot of exemptions and they provide credits for portions of pensions and retirements. South Carolina is a pretty good state. Closer you can get to the ocean, obviously it's going to get better, but it's a pretty nice state. The bummer is they do get hurricanes, and their healthcare is ranked 39th in the nation for seniors. Number 3, West Virginia. West Virginia could get on this list on price alone. They are right up there with Mississippi when it comes to cost of living. They got a whole truckload of issues they're working on, but there's a few things you can't deny about West Virginia. Cheap housing, a low cost of living, and natural beauty that puts the state up there, I would say, in the top 5 in the country. If you like fishing, hiking, anything like that, West Virginia is a solid choice for any retiree, for anyone really. They have a ton of senior care facilities too. If you are a retiree, they have one of the highest rates of people over the age of 65 in the country. It's 21%. That's the 3rd highest in the nation. So there's a couple different studies that rank healthcare, and West Virginia is the only one that was really different on both of the studies I looked at. One ranks them 18th in the nation, and the other one ranks them as 49th. So I don't know who to believe at this point. Give you an example, some of the other ones. Mississippi on one had Mississippi at 48, but on another one had them at 46. So fairly close. One had Florida at 28, one had Florida at 31. Again, fairly close. This one's way off, so I'm really not sure which one to go by, but they're ranked 49th. They get some pretty bad winter, so keep that in mind. Spring and summer is beautiful in West Virginia. I mean, obviously winter has its own type of beauty, but to get out and do things, spring and summer are amazing here. The good news is they're the 3rd most affordable state. Now, there's a little side note to West Virginia. If you have a really good paying retirement or pension, West Virginia might not be the best option, because after $60,000 per individual, they start taxing you pretty good on your retirement. So keep that in mind. But the cost of living here is amazingly low, and so is housing, so they get on the list. Number 2, Tennessee. Yes, the great state of Tennessee, the volunteer state. They've become more and more popular in the last few years. I mean, they always kind of have been, but they've been picking up steam. Used to be only people went to rural towns and Nashville. Chattanooga and Knoxville are starting to get popular, so that's a plus. People that don't make good decisions move to Memphis. Tennessee has something for everyone, even poor decision makers. Even though it's popular, Tennessee is still relatively affordable. Sure, it's no Mississippi or West Virginia, but it's also no California, New York, or Oregon. They have all kinds of different credits and taxes, but they also have no state income tax in Tennessee. Yeah, they're one of those states. Now, when you look at all the different programs they have for seniors and retirees, Tennessee is one of the top 10 every single time we look at that. So it's a great place to retire and grow old. Sadly, they do have Memphis, which has a ton of crime like I've been talking about. They can get some pretty bad winter weather. Still, not as bad as like North Dakota, Minnesota, stuff like that. It can get cold. Their summers, spring, and autumn are amazing. You just got worried about the quality of healthcare they got there. They're actually ranked 45th. Saw another study where they're ranked 40th. All right, before we get to number 1, if you're thinking about relocating to another state, we have a link down below for Home and Money. That's a website that has all kinds of tools for you if you're thinking about relocating and buying a house, like getting you in touch with a real estate agent, mortgage calculator, things like that. All right, on to number 1. And number 1. Alabama. Yep, Alabama, another southern state, is our number 1 state for cheap retirement. Their cost of living and their housing is just a little more expensive than West Virginia, Mississippi, but they have a lot more exemptions and tax breaks for retirees. So in the end, they're cheaper than both of them, which I know is hard to believe. Alabama, in most cases, is a better state. They got a lot of friendly people there that love to have a party, especially if some college football's on. The downside is it gets pretty hot during the summer, and their healthcare is ranked 41st in the nation. Not good. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, and be nice to each other.